Her scream was silent, but the desert heard it. The sun beat down on the empty plain, burning the sand until it shimmered like glass. A young woman stumbled through the heat, her bare feet bleeding, her breath ragged. The only thing covering her trembling body was a single palm frond she had torn miles back by an old windmill. Dust clung to her tears, the scent of blood mixed with sweat and fear. Every step looked like it might be her last. By the time she reached the edge of Cole Barrett's ranch, the world had already gone white. Her name was Nora Pike. Though Cole wouldn't learn that until the sun came up, no one in those parts had ever seen a girl run that far alive. She pressed herself against the rough wall of his wooden cabin, shaking so hard the boards creaked beneath her. When the door opened, she froze. Cole stood there with a rope over one shoulder and a hat shadowing his weathered face. His eyes, the color of gunmetal, locked on hers. He had seen wounded cattle, dying men, even Apache raids in his lifetime, but never anything like this. For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind filled the silence, dry and hot as breath from an oven. Then her lips moved, cracked and trembling. "Please," she whispered. "Don't send me back." Cole stepped closer, slow enough not to scare her, fast enough to show he meant to help. He unbuttoned his old canvas coat and draped it over her shoulders. Beneath the coat, he could feel the sharp bones of hunger and the bruises no man should ever have left on a woman. He guided her inside. She flinched at every sound. The kettle's hiss, the creak of floorboards, the scrape of his boots. When he reached for a clean rag and a bowl of water, her eyes filled with tears. "What happened to you?" he asked softly. She shook her head at first, then the words fell out like stones breaking through ice. "My father sneaks in every night." Her voice cracked like the sky before a storm, raw and full of something broken. She paused, eyes darting toward the floor. "He ain't my real father," she whispered, almost choking on the words. Cole froze. The words hung in the air, heavy and wrong, for a heartbeat. Even the desert outside seemed to stop breathing. Then she started crying, not loud, just the kind of cry that comes from somewhere too deep to fix. Cole knelt beside her. He didn't speak. He didn't ask again. He just kept wrapping the bandage around her wrists until the shaking slowed. Outside, a hawk screamed over the canyon, echoing through the still heat. Somewhere in that sound, Cole felt something dangerous stir. Not fear, not pity, but fury. He looked at the door, then at her. "You're safe here," he said quietly. "But in a place like Arizona territory, safety never lasts long." And as Cole poured water into the basin, a question burned through his mind. When that monster comes looking for her, how far will I go to stop him? The next morning came hot and bright, the kind of Arizona heat that makes the air dance above the dirt. Cole was up early, feeding his horses, trying to pretend the world was still the same, but it wasn't. Inside that cabin, a broken girl was sleeping in his bed wrapped in one of his old wool blankets. He kept thinking about her words, the way her voice cracked when she said them. "My father sneaks in every night." It echoed through his head like a shot he couldn't unhear. He didn't notice the dust cloud on the horizon at first, not until his dog, Jasper, started barking toward the gate. Cole shaded his eyes. A man on horseback, riding fast, kicking up dirt like the devil was behind him. By the time the rider pulled up, Cole already knew who it was. Ephraim Pike. The kind of man whose eyes always looked half drunk, half angry, his face red from the sun and the bottle both. "Where is she?" he shouted before even dismounting. "You got my girl in there, don't you?" Cole didn't move. He just stood by the corral fence, arms crossed, jaw tight. "She's not yours," he said, "and she's not going anywhere with you." Ephraim laughed, mean and loud. "You think I won't come in and take her?" Cole's hand dropped to the butt of his Colt. Not to draw, just to remind the man what side of the law he was standing on. "You take one more step," he said, "and you'll be limping home." The man tried it anyway. He shoved at the gate. Cole grabbed his wrist faster than a snake strikes. Years of breaking wild horses had made his grip like iron. In one smooth move, he twisted the man's arm and sent him face first into the dust. Ephraim cursed, rolling over, spitting grit from his mouth. "This ain't over, old man," he growled. "You'll wish you never touched what's mine." Cole looked down at him, calm but cold. She was never yours. Ephraim. You married her mama, not her. Ephraim climbed back on his horse, glaring, and rode off toward the hills. Jasper barked after him until he disappeared into the heat. Inside the cabin, Nora was standing by the window, her fingers clutching the blanket tight around her shoulders. "He's coming back, isn't he?" she whispered. Cole didn't answer right away. He poured her a cup of water, handed it to her, and said, "Let him try." She watched him for a long moment, like she was trying to figure out if he really meant it. Cole turned toward the open door, the desert wind rushing in, bringing the smell of dust and sage. He knew that man wasn't done. Men like Ephraim never stop until someone stops them first. And deep down, Cole also knew something else. Next time Ephraim comes, he won't be coming alone. Trouble was riding closer than the wind, and the desert always kept always kept its secrets. That evening, the sun dropped behind the Huachuca Mountains, spilling gold light across the range. The air turned soft, but Cole's gut stayed tight. He had a bad feeling that trouble wasn't done with them. Out here, quiet nights usually meant somebody was sneaking up on you. Nora helped him bring in the horses, her hand still shaking a little. She was trying to act strong, but fear showed through the way she kept glancing toward the road. Cole noticed, yet he didn't say much, just kept working, slow and steady, so she could breathe in his rhythm. By the next morning, Cole's feeling proved right. A trail of hoofprints came cutting through the sand behind the barn. 2 sets this time. One belonged to Ephraim. The other, heavier, belonged to somebody who knew how to ride hard. Around noon, the pair showed up at the gate. Ephraim was shouting before he even got close, waving his pistol like a drunk preacher. The man beside him stayed silent, face half hidden under a black hat. Cole recognized that slouch, that way of looking around without moving his head. Jeb Crowley, a man who'd once ridden shotgun for the stage line out of Charleston. Cole stepped out slow, wiping his hands on a rag. "Morning, boys," he said. "You sure you want to be here?" Ephraim spat in the dirt. "You got something that belongs to me." Before Cole could answer, Jeb's eyes met his, and everything changed. The man froze like he'd seen a ghost. Jeb had been there that night outside Tombstone, the night Cole Barrett saved the marshal by dropping 3 rustlers in under 10 seconds. Word was, Cole never missed. Jeb had carried that story in his gut for years, like a bullet he couldn't dig out. Jeb never forgot the sound of that Winchester, or the look in Cole's eyes afterward. Now, standing here, he backed his horse up, slow. "No, Ephraim," he said, voice low. "Not this man. Not today," Ephraim snarled. "What's wrong with you?" Jeb shook his head, eyes still locked on Cole. "I like breathing. That's what." Then he turned his horse and rode off without another word. Ephraim was left alone, red-faced and furious, screaming curses that rolled across the open land. Cole didn't move. He just pointed toward the hills. "You best start riding before the sheriff hears how close you came to getting yourself killed." Ephraim cursed one last time and galloped off, kicking dust in his own face. When the noise was gone, Nora stepped out from behind the barn. "That man," she whispered, "he looked scared of you." Cole shrugged. Some folks remember what they should. Then he turned toward the house, already thinking about the next step. Trouble like Ephraim doesn't quit. It festers. That night, Cole sat on the porch with his coffee cooling in his hands. He knew what he had to do next. Tomorrow, he'd ride to Tombstone and speak with his old friend, the sheriff. It was time to end this the right way, before you go anywhere. Take a breath, pour yourself a cup of tea, sit back, and let this story settle in your chest. Then tell me, what time is it where you are, and where are you listening from? And hey, if you've been riding along this far, tap that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens when Cole rides into Tombstone tomorrow. The next morning, the air over the desert was sharp and dry. Cole saddled his old bay horse, tied a clean shirt to the back, and told Nora he'd be gone before the heat rose. She followed him to the gate, her face pale but stronger than he'd seen it before. "You sure you need to go?" she asked. He nodded. "It's time the law heard your story. The ride to Tombstone took most of the day. The sun baked the road, and heat waves rolled off the sand like water." Cole knew every turn of that trail, every dry creek bed, every spot where outlaws used to hide. The town appeared ahead near sunset, a cluster of wooden roofs and the sound of hammering from a new saloon going up. Inside the sheriff's office, the air smelled like gun oil and coffee that had been reheated too many times. Sheriff Tom Grady looked up from his desk and broke into a grin. "Well, if it isn't Cole Barrett, thought you'd gone quiet out on that ranch." Cole gave a tired smile. Didn't come for small talk. "Tom, I came with a girl's story you need to hear." He told him everything. About Nora showing up half-dressed and half-dead, about the bruises, the crying, the man who called himself her father. The sheriff listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening a little more with each detail. When Cole finished, Tom stood up. "You did right bringing her here. I'll send for Doc Harris to write a statement, then we'll get a warrant." By nightfall, the doctor confirmed everything. The sheriff rode with 2 deputies toward Benson to arrest Ephraim Pike. Cole stayed in town, pacing outside the office, watching the stars come out over the rooftops. It was almost midnight when the riders returned. Tom climbed off his horse, his face grim. He wasn't home, he said. "Neighbor says he left before sundown, said he had business near your land." Cole's stomach turned cold. He knew what that meant. He grabbed his hat and rifle before the sheriff could even finish. "Cole," Tom warned, "don't go off half-cocked. We'll send men in the morning." Cole looked back once. Morning might be too late. He rode hard through the night. The moon was full, bright enough to see the dust trail behind him. Every mile closer to the ranch felt heavier. He pictured Nora alone in that small cabin, maybe asleep, maybe listening to every sound outside the window. When the first lights of dawn touched the hills, Cole saw smoke rising from the direction of his barn. His heart stopped. He kicked the horse faster, rifle ready. The gate hung open. The air smelled of burnt wood and gunpowder. Then, somewhere near the corral, he heard a scream, and it wasn't the kind a man forgets. Cole jumped off his horse before it even stopped. Smoke drifted low across the yard. The barn door was split open. Inside, a figure moved fast through the haze. It was Ephraim, wild-eyed and desperate. Holding a pistol that shook in his hand, Nora was backed into a corner, clutching a lantern like it was her last hope. Cole stepped in slow, rifle leveled but steady. "Put it down," he said. Ephraim laughed, a dry sound that cracked like the fire behind him. "You think you can take what's mine and walk away?" Cole didn't answer. He just looked at Nora, then back at the man who had broken her life. "She was never yours," he said quietly, "and she never will be." The moment stretched tight. Dust rose on the ridge, riders coming fast. They'd been coming since Benson. Then the pistol jerked upward. One shot rang out. Ephraim dropped, clutching his leg. Boots pounded outside. Tom and his men had been trailing Ephraim since Benson, riding hard through the night. They burst in, rifles raised. "We heard the shot from the ridge," Tom growled. Cole lowered his rifle, breathing hard. "You got here just in time," he said. Tom nodded once. "He'll live long enough to stand trial. Justice rides slow out here, but when it comes, it never forgets." Days later, the courtroom in Tombstone was packed. Ephraim Pike stood before the judge, his face pale under the bruises. The doctor's report, Cole's testimony, and Nora's trembling words told the story plain. The judge's gavel hit hard. Years of labor in the territorial prison. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. When they walked out into the sunlight, Nora reached for Cole's hand. Her eyes were still tired, but they were no longer afraid. Months passed. The ranch healed the way people do, slow but sure. Nora learned to ride and to mend fences, to laugh again. The nights were quiet now, filled only with crickets and the soft sound of wind through the grass.